Your PS5 is getting another graphics upgrade. There's another PS5 hack out there, and your DualSense just got a new feature. How's it going, everyone, and welcome to PSReady. I'm jumping right into it with this God of War DualSense controller. I took it out of the box already because when you buy a DualSense, all you get is the controller. You don't even get a cable anymore, which I feel like is crazy. Apple started that one with chargers with the iPhone, and everyone else followed suit as quick as they possibly could. Now, I just got my hands on this thing, and I like it a lot. The colorway honestly reminds me of Sonic the Hedgehog on the front. I definitely am going to take the black little plastic piece and just snap this off and use the white DualSense one from my original DualSense and put the black plastic piece there just because I feel like that'll add a little bit more to the look. Just a little too much white on here for me. The most interesting kind of secret, just because I don't think Sony really ever showed it off about this DualSense, is that on the back you get the God of War Ragnarok logo there. So if you were ever in doubt that this is a God of War Ragnarok controller, you could just flip it over and look in the back and prove it to your friends who are just relentlessly bullying you for having a knockoff controller. So I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but now that I'm very far in the game, I kind of understand why on the touchpad they have two wolves representing Atreus and Kratos. And thankfully, since this controller showed up almost a week after the game came out, I'm like breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief here that I actually really enjoy the game, because nothing is worse than pre-ordering a controller based around a game that you end up not liking. So yeah, because of the extra printing, because of the dual colorway you get on this DualSense controller, I think it's worth the upcharge of $5 if you are a huge God of War fan like I am. So yeah, I'm excited to finally have my hands on this controller. I think it's awesome that despite the fact it's got the white in there, they went with black buttons on the controller. That's a little bit of a difference that I think is going a long way for me. So yeah, if you want to pick one of these up for yourself, I have it linked down in the description. Next up, I'm going to shout out my channel Deck Ready, because there have been some interesting developments with the DualShock and DualSense over on Linux. So the DualSense since December of 2020 has been able to be used on Linux with any game you want. And if you're playing on Steam, it's been working just fine because you can use the Steam overlay and the Steam input stuff to like make the controller behave as if it's an Xbox controller if it's not working with a game you're playing on Linux. So that's great. But for some reason, the DualShock 4 never really had the native support that the DualSense has had since 2020 on Linux. And there's a new update that added that support. So that's great. If you're not playing games on Steam, you're just playing Linux games, you're able to finally take advantage of the DualShock 4. But in conjunction with this new driver update that Linux as a whole got, SteamOS also got a great upgrade that involves the DualShock and DualSense controllers. So the DualShock 4 and the DualSense both have touchpads. We all know this. Every game takes advantage of it if it's made by PlayStation first party, because they're like, we got to justify this extra hardware because, you know, we have backwards compatibility on the PlayStation 5. We had to keep it for the DualSense. It's important to the brand of PlayStation. I get it. And the cool thing is, with the new beta version of SteamOS, you can actually use the touchpad of the DualSense and the DualShock 4 as a mouse to control your desktop. Now, this only works if you have Steam open, just like the on-screen keyboard. Like, you can't take advantage of that if Steam is closed on the desktop mode. So if you have your DualShock or DualSense connected to your Steam Deck via Bluetooth or USB, you have to make sure that Steam is open and running to be able to take advantage of the touchpad as a mouse. Now, this is actually super handy for me because I just got the Steam Deck dock, and I really like that dock. I have it plugged in at my desk. I also have an HDMI cord running from my TV to it, so I can switch it between my monitor and my TV whenever I want. And recently, because I'm playing God of War Ragnarok, I decided I wanted to go back and play God of War, the original game, not from 2018, from 2005, and then God of War 2, and then Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta, just because I played those games so much growing up, and I kind of got that nostalgic feeling for them playing God of War Ragnarok. So because they're PS2 games and PSP games, they run great on the TV. And now I'm gonna have a much easier time getting them set up and starting them because I can use the touchpad on my DualSense as a mouse, which is so sick. So yeah, if you have a Steam Deck, that is like one small feature of a massive update that adds a ton of different features that I'm going to talk about in Deck Ready later this week. So go subscribe there if you want to know more about that. But now you know you can use your DualSense or your DualShock 4 as a mouse on your Steam Deck's desktop mode, which is pretty sweet. Next up, we have to talk about the Witcher 3's next gen update, because the saga of this update is finally ending. Yes, this update that was supposed to come out before Cyberpunk 2077 back in 2020 is now finally finally coming out on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Now, obviously, we don't know fully what happened behind the scenes, but it really involves Saber Interactive. So they're the studio who made the World War Z game. Allegedly, they've taken over the KOTOR remake. They made one of my favorite games this year, Evil Dead the game, but they were also doing this next-gen upgrade as like a contracted developer for CD Projekt Red, and I guess they ran into some issue to the point where CD Projekt took back their contract and said, look, we're doing this next-gen upgrade in-house. And I'm honestly curious what the issue is here. Like, what is causing this to be so difficult? Because we've seen so many games at this point, whether it's God of War 2018, The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, pretty much any game out there that has a PS4 version also comes along with a PS5 patch that increases the level of detail, increases the frame rate, increases the draw distance, you know, smooths out the game and makes it look and play a lot better than it did back on the PS4 and Xbox One. And The Witcher 3, it launched kind of rough, right? Like, it had some frame rate issues, it had some bugs. Most of the bugs were funny, like Roach ending up on the roofs of houses when you would come out of them, but it was never really this like technically jank game. It was a pretty solid game from top to bottom, whether you played it on PS4, PC, or Xbox One. And I mean, even the Switch version performs really well for that handheld. The only reason I can think of for this taking so long, other than the fact that they basically had to start over when they brought it in-house, is that they were also working on fixing Cyberpunk 2077 and updating it for next gen, and also they're working on Phantom Liberty, and now they're working on a new remake in Unreal Engine 5 of the first Witcher. Like, they have a lot of stuff going on at CD Projekt Red, and I can kind of understand why a lot of that stuff would take precedence over this next gen upgrade for The Witcher 3. Either way, it should look and run a lot better, and you're not going to have to wait too long to check it out because, as I mentioned, it's coming to PS5 on December 14th. So this is increasing the frame rate, it's adding ray tracing, it's giving us some DLC from the Netflix Witcher show, which probably would have hit a lot harder in 2020 if this actually happened when it was supposed to, versus now where Henry Cavill is no longer going to play Geralt in the show, which is just not great. Like, I've got nothing against the Hemsworth brother that's taking over, but it's not going to live up to Henry Cavill's Geralt. He was like perfect casting for that character, and just not having him finishing out the show means I'm probably not going to watch past the season that he's about to be in, and then I'm just going to be done. I'm not going to watch the season after he's gone. But yeah, it is nice to see that there is going to be some DLC from the show, just like with Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and also they say that they're going to bake in some mods for the game that people really like. I'd like to see the mod that lets you upgrade that armor to keep it relevant throughout the entire game be included, because for me, that's just the coolest Geralt looks. You do, in one of the DLCs, get a version of it that's matte black. I do like that. I just think the gray version looks better. So I'd like to see that mod included. They haven't really detailed the full changelogs, but yeah, this is going to be a free upgrade if you already have The Witcher 3, which at this point, I think you could probably walk to GameStop and get it for like $5 on disc on PS4. So yeah, pretty cool upgrade. It's coming December 14th. Took longer than it should have. We are officially deep in November, which means the Black Friday deals are starting. The last time we talked about this, I said you might want to hold off until the actual Black Friday ads come out. And after looking at these games that are on sale right now, I'm still going to give a tentative hold just to see if they go a little bit lower. So on the surface, $19 for Deathloop seems like a good deal, but if you have Game Pass Ultimate or PS Plus Extra, you can just download the game to your console and play through it for free. So I would make sure that you only buy it if you have PS Plus Essential. Another situation where I would say the exact same thing is the Demon's Souls remake. That is an incredible game. It really showcases the PS5, I think, even though it's a remake of the PS3 version of the game. I've also seen it drop as low as like 30 or 40 bucks, so I feel like 50 is a little too high for Demon's Souls. Elden Ring is $50, and honestly, that's one where I'm like, man, you might want to pick it up for that price just because I haven't seen it drop lower than $50, and also it's probably going to win Game of the Year at the Game Awards. People are still buying it. It's one of the biggest games this year, probably the second biggest game. So I would say if you haven't played Elden Ring yet and you're like worried about it dropping a little bit lower, I think you can feel mildly safe picking it up for $50. The InZone H7 headset is also one I would highly recommend at its current price at some retailers of $153. I'll make sure I link the ones where it costs that much down in the description. You're getting great speaker drivers in that headset that are on par with the Sony 1000X Mark whatever series of headphones, which are like basically one of the best headphones on the market. So I feel like at $153 compared to the $400 that the 1000X Mark V's cost, you really can't go wrong with this headset. It also does a cool thing with the microphone where if you want to mute it, you just flip it up and then you flip it down when you want to use it. I just think that's cool. It comes with a USB dongle for your PS5 or your PC, but you can also use Bluetooth with it. So if you don't mind walking around with a gaming headset headset on that has a flip up mic, you could actually use these as some pretty damn good Bluetooth headphones. I'm so excited. I get to bring up the Samsung 980 Pro, my favorite SSD. Man, this one dropped last week to $220, which was like an unheard of deal for one of the best SSDs on the market. But now it has dropped all the way down another $30 to $190. I think this is a guaranteed buy. I doubt it'll go any lower. And if you're a first responder, a veteran, or I think a teacher, you can actually get $20 more off, which would make this $170. Like either way, even if you don't need an SSD right now, I would pick this up for $170 because if you build a PC down the line or something like that, you're gonna have one of the fastest SSDs on the market and you'll know you got a great price for it. At 2 terabytes, whether you're paying $190 or $170, or even if this deal ends and it starts costing $220 again, you can feel good about those prices, I promise you. And if you found yourself addicted to the grind in Gran Turismo 7, you can get the Logitech G29 driving force wheel for $100 off at $200. That's a pretty good deal, it seems. It has the gas, the brake, the clutch. I don't know if that's standard with driving wheels. I just thought that was interesting. And it doesn't actually have a gear shifter like for a stick shift, but you've got paddle shifters on the steering wheel. So I don't, when you use paddle shifters, you don't need the clutch, right? No. My friend Rich behind the camera, who actually uses these things, says you can get the shifter for $60, which kind of makes everything make more sense. So yeah, I'll keep you updated on the Black Friday deals as they roll in. I would guess later this week is when we're gonna have the big blowout video where we go through all the actual deals when Target, Best Buy, Amazon, and whoever else release their ads. And then the final update for you guys is that God of War Ragnarok has been hacked to unlock a secret feature. Now, if you've been playing through the game and you're like me, you've been wanting to use that photo mode that God of War 2018 had and that The Last of Us Part 1 just had. I took so many screenshots while I was playing through that game specifically just over a month ago, and I was super disappointed to find that God of War Ragnarok is not launching with a photo mode. So you're basically stuck with taking screenshots whenever you want that are already predefined. It kind of works out in that game though, because when you're not fighting and you're in a story mode sequence, the HUD completely disappears. So you can actually get some pretty clean screenshots, and I've taken quite a few at this point, but I've been really wanting that photo mode, which they've said is coming later. And as it turns out, it's already in the game. A Twitter user has been able to hack their God of War game to take advantage of this photo mode. And it's not something where they're like trying to say, oh, if we hold back the photo mode at launch, we can do an update later on and get this game back in the news cycle and wait 6 months. The photo mode that's in the game right now is actually unfinished. Like there's a screenshot I saw where Kratos is making like an angry face and his bottom lip goes down and you can see his gums. And it's kind of weird how detailed his teeth are. It looks like this dude needs to visit the dentist. He's got a lot of plaque down at the bottom of his teeth. That's the attention to detail you get with Sony. But under his gums, it's just like a black box because they didn't render like the rest of his lip skin, which kind of makes sense because why would they? That's definitely a feature you could leave on the cutting room floor to add in later. But all of the effects and camera control options are there, which is great. So it doesn't seem like it's going to take too long for this feature to be cleaned up and added to God of War Ragnarok. One other thing I'd really like to see added to this game is what we got in The Last of Us Part 2, which is the ability after you beat the game to just do combat encounters over again. You don't have to play through the entire game. You can just go to specific combat encounters in the game. Because while this game is very similar to God of War 2018, it's also much bigger, which means there's a lot of moments in this game where you're just running around and exploring the environment and not necessarily fighting things. So like if they added in the arena mode, they brought back the Muspelheim trials, or they let you fight the Valkyries, I'm just thinking of things that they could do to make it so that you can just jump into the game and get into combat right out of the gate. Because that's definitely going to stop me from going back and randomly replaying this game. The fact that I have to go through so much story stuff to get to a lot of the bigger fights and boss fights in the game. But yeah, if you want to take advantage of this photo mode, you're going to have to figure out how this person hacked their game. But regardless, it looks like it's pretty far along, so it shouldn't be too long until we can just take advantage of it ourselves through a patch.